welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 178. Hello. I have missed you all. Thank you so much for listening. I just decided to take a quick break, but I'm back, I'm black, and I'm here. And I just want to start off this podcast by talking about this binge that I'm on. Not an alcohol binge, not an eating binge necessarily. We'll talk about that later. But Hulu. My God. The content is impeccable. Like I guess I didn't realize the amount of quality content available on Hulu. There were some shows that I've been meaning to get into, like The Dropout, for example, which is about Elizabeth Holmes, this young white woman who created a company that was completely fraudulent, and the company's goal was to aid patients and treating them earlier before whatever disease that they have becomes fatal. And she does so by pricking your blood by the tip of your finger, and through that prick of the blood you can be quickly diagnosed and treated accordingly. Now, it's all a lie because as you see, if you guys watched it, check it out. It's 8 episodes long and it's stunning. Like, I think I binged it in a day, maybe 2 days. But I literally watched it back to back because there's something about mental illness, y'all. Like, I am amazed. You know how I talk about bioweapon and how atrazine is a type of bioweapon, is one of many, but it's an example of such that is put into the certain fruits that you eat that's not organic. So, for example, if you're eating grapes that are not organic, you may come across atrazine, which definitely negatively impacts your hormones, and it's basically like a gauging. You know that whole thing, a gauging. But just do your research. This is not the point what I'm trying to make. Well, it's related to it. But the point I'm saying here is mental illness is so prevalent that I don't think it's something that's just accidental. I don't think it's something that, we just kind of fall in. No, I think this was orchestrated by the higher ups, the elite, through many different outlets. So through pharmaceuticals, through the media, through just a culture shift in our society. Mental illness, it has become something that is nurtured and created upon the culture that you're living in, rather than it being something that is, my father struggled with alcoholism, therefore I have the gene of that, and I just so happen to struggle with it too, right? It's more than just even if you go into that route, right? The root in that stems from some type of chemical warfare. It stems from somebody being maltreated, whether it being done directly, purposely, or indirectly. But the point is, there are things put in place in the world that we live in that impacts us so greatly in a negative way that it leads to us having a mental illness of some kind. So when I watched The Dropout, that focuses on Elizabeth Holmes, I am just so flabbergasted by the extreme mental illness prevalent in this woman. It's so strong in her. And every time I watch a show, I like to go on Reddit or just kind of find a community that talks about the show so I can understand just different points in the show that I may have not recognized, or I could just relate with someone like, oh, you notice this too, right? And like just kind of, indulge in conversation. I couldn't find a Reddit page, one, for the dropout, so that really sucked. And Twitter is not really much of a great space to really have a really deep, just informative conversation that is not judgmental, whatever. But anyway, I think if I were to guess, there's, because I was doing some research, and it there's some allegation that she may be sociopathic or psychopathic, either one. But the way that she processes feelings is really robotic. Like, it's not genuine, it's not natural. For example, there's a point in the miniseries, and this is a case of real life, right? So this man named Ian, I think that's his name, he was one of the few people who started off with her at the very beginning stages of her company. And here's the thing with her and her company, Theranos. And I remember seeing the interview, well, from the show. She talks about how the genesis of the name really is a mix of therapy and diagnosis. So Theranos. So it was kind of funny. But anyway, so Ian, this older British gentleman who is a chemist, and he lives and breathes being a chemist. He finds great pride in it, and he really loves what he does. And at the start of her company, she genuinely wanted to help people. She genuinely, and she wanted to become a billionaire. Like that was also a big motivating factor for her. She idolized Steve Jobs and many other just trendsetters who really made a name for themselves, who garnered a lot of money for themselves. But she wanted to so she started this company, and her goal was to really help people in identifying whatever illness that they have. And so she partnered up, and she's really smart, right? Or I don't even know. I think she's smart. I just think something's missing. But anyway, so she's really smart, but she decided to drop out of college. She went to Stanford. Was it Stanford? She went to Stanford. Anyway, she dropped out of college. And she definitely went to Ivy League. I want to say it's Stanford, but she went to Ivy League college for sure. And she decided to drop out her sophomore year. So very young. So sophomore year in college, you're 19, just almost hitting 20. But so she decided to drop out. She drops out, and she partners with a former professor of hers, this chemist professor, and a couple of engineers from Stanford whom she met and was a part of a fellowship with. And I say that she's really smart because she really excelled in biology and like the sciences of it all. And she actually really showed herself to be a strong candidate and a strong member of this graduate team at Stanford for this like biology like group or whatever. It's like hobby group or whatever. Anyway, so she decides to drop out. She drops out. She convinces her parents, hey, instead of paying my tuition outright like you have been doing, I would like for you to consider to put that money towards my company as an investment. And she convinced them. They finally agree. And so she purchases this building in the wrong side of town, but that was the best that she could do for the time being, well, for the money that she had available to do so. And her small team started the company, and they did different tests and tricks and hypotheses and all that to get where they needed to be for the company. But every time it was time to demonstrate that this company is legit, and here's what we're capable of doing. Here's why you should invest. Whenever Elizabeth Holmes reaches out to potential investors, she never followed suit with a successful result. Every time it was time to show, hey, here's what this program or this machine could do, it was always reading an error message on the machine that they had. Yet she was still able to finagle her way through it. Many people still wanted to believe in her because she's this young blonde, and maybe it's a level of pretty privilege, but I don't think she was really that pretty, honestly. But you know, white girl pretty is different than black girl pretty. I don't know. But the point of what I brought this up because Ian was one of the people who started off with her, and he was this older gentleman, British guy, and he ended up taking his life after. Just watch the whole show because this is a lot. But so she knew him from the very beginning, like when things were pure, before she decided to go the corrupt route with her company. She knew him from the beginning. She had this like, he was like a father figure in her life. And when he decided to take his own life, instead of feeling sad and remorseful, like, man, maybe I went too far with my company and my corruption, she was like, I won. And the reason why she said I won is because you can't say because after saying reason. The reason why is because you can't say that. Anyway, just a little nerd moment. But she decided to, so she said she won because she was being sued at the time by a neighbor, the neighbor of her parents, and he wanted to use him as a way to take her down. And since Ian decided to take his own life, she said, well, I won this lawsuit. You know, the court won't find me liable, and so this worked out for me in my favor. Instead of feeling sad and remorseful, like, wow, your longtime friend, someone who helped you build your company to what it is now, decided to take his own life. Like, what the fuck? And you said you won? I say all this to say, there is a mental illness there. Like, there's something chemically wrong. Something's wrong with her brain. Something's wrong with how she operates. She can't feel the way that normal, average people feel. And this seems to be pretty prevalent amongst many of the shows that I watched so far on Hulu. So shout out to Hulu. But, like, I'm just amazed at how prevalent it is. And sure, you may say, well, these are just like, you know, separate, isolated cases, and you can't say everyone. I think I can. I'm a doctor, and I think I can. No, but I'm saying that because even around me, like, there's people around me who may demonstrate extreme anxiety, extreme paranoia, extreme depression. And it's to the point, you know, there's a line between feeling, I feel a little nervous being around people, or like new people, right? And the other side is, I feel extremely nervous. I don't want to ever go out. I'm staying home, and it is what it is. That's problematic. That's a problem there. And I think when you have a society that tries to normalize and make light of, I'm a homebody, right? I like to be home. I don't like to go out. Fuck new friends, no new friends, right? It pushes this to be normal. You should feel fine being alone. Why would you want to meet other people? You should like your own company. You shouldn't be with new people. You shouldn't meet and network and be extroverted. And look, on one hand, I understand the joy. Y'all know I love my own company. I like being in my own space. I can control my surroundings with that. But I've always said I enjoy being around people whom I find to be quality people and whom I enjoy their company. So there's a give and take there. But when you have the extreme of, I don't want to be with anybody, I only want to be by myself, I want to work alone, I want to be alone, I don't want to date, I don't want to meet, and even if I like engage in sexual intercourse, it's just to like complete a fix that I'm needing, and it's simply to just to fulfill a basic human need, right? It's robotic. So going back to that woman, Elizabeth Holmes, I'm reminded of a scene from the miniseries, and she's having sex with this guy. Oh no, even before that. So she's about to go to college. Her mom is with her at the hospital for like a brief checkup, and she decided to share with her mom, I'm deciding to have sex before I get to college. So I'm deciding to have sex. So she was going to go on this, or she went on this abroad trip in China. And she decided to share with her mom that I have made an executive decision to have sex before I go to college, to kind of just get it out the way. And it's, on one hand, you may think, oh, maybe they just have a great mother and daughter relationship. That's weird. That's weird. Like, you know, like there's a mental illness there. Like there's something wrong with that. Like, why do you feel so comfortable to be that open with your mother, especially if she didn't try to probe for that from you and you decide to share that? That's awfully strange, in my opinion. And so she goes off to she goes off to this China abroad trip, and she meets, you know what, I should have looked it up, but I forgot. I'm going to do my best to do it at the same time while I'm talking to y'all. So she's on this China trip, and it's a college, it's a trip that's targeting college students. Like, it's for college students. So it's a majority of college students with her on this trip, but she's not really a sociable person like that, or like normal in that sense. She doesn't like go out and have drinks and stuff. Like, she has to force herself into feeling like that, or into like acting like that. Like, she knows how to play along, but she does it in a way that is rehearsed. It's not natural. It's not natural. And this goes into another show that I'm going to talk about in a moment if I remember. But anyway, so she's on this trip. How old was Sonny when he met Elizabeth Holmes? That's what I'm looking up right now, because so she's on this trip, right? And yeah, let's do timeline. So she's on this trip, and they're all living in a hostel. Like this, in a hostel is like this, like, kind of not run down. It's just it's affordable housing basically for travelers, and you know, it's great for like solo travelers if you're not really into luxury living. And I was looking into that for a moment, just like, oh, I wonder, you know, how do people like just travel, you know, solo and go to so many different places? Like, that shit's expensive, and it's expensive like in my head, because I immediately think of like, oh, well, you want to live in a nice hotel, right? You want to stay there for, you know, 4 to 5 days, and, you know, have poolside view. Nah, the reason why a lot of these travelers could afford traveling is because they live in hostels. They live in these rundown, I don't know if it's rundown, but it's like you're living in a dormitory basically, and you're literally, it's just a bed. Like, you're in a bunk bed style room. You're sharing space with other people, strangers. There's probably a shared kitchen as well. Definitely a shared bathroom. Like, it's just kind of weird. But you know, a lot of people do that, and I'm not gonna, let me not hate on that. But let me see. So she, at the time, Elizabeth, 18, senior high school, and Sonny was 37. Okay. There we go. So she was 18, so she was above age, or of age, and she met him when he was 37. Now, what's the age difference? I like to go by the age difference. So that's about, 37, 18. Oh my gosh, my stupid thing. But the point is, that's a 19 age difference. Now, you know, look, you know, love is love, right? Love is love. I'm laughing extra hard. No, look, 18 is kind of, you know, But um I'm fine. I'm fine. So I'm gathering my thoughts because it's heavy. The reason why it's like very sketchy because I watched the whole show, right? The whole mini series, and I was able to see how probably not a good idea it is that he started or they started their relationship at her being 18. Say if she was 25, then that'll be better, right? He'll still be years older, but at least she have a couple years under her belt and is more, at least you should be more mentally mature, emotionally mature, etc. But 18, and then I have to consider that's something. There's a lot of things that comes to mind because she's not normal. Elizabeth Holmes is not normal. She doesn't operate like the average person. She doesn't think the same way. She's like on a different level. She's very mature, and another thing that comes to mind. A lot of these thoughts. No, another thing that comes to mind is how this is like different. It goes in alignment. But you know how pedophiles will be like, look, she look older than her age, or she's very mature. No, they will say she's very mature for her age, right? She's very mature for her age. It's like, it doesn't matter that she's 16. She understands me. She's very mature. It's like, nigga, you're 52. And she's 16. She's 14. What are you talking about? But she's very mature for her age, right? In this case, though, Elizabeth Holmes is very... I'm dead ass. Like, look, thankfully she was already 18, right? She met the mark. I think she was actually close to 19. Because that's what she said in the documentary at one point. But... she made the mark, but I think though she is at a different level in comparison to her counterparts at this time, and you see that shown a lot and very clearly in the miniseries when you see her counterparts, just being regular 18, 19-year-olds, having casual sex, drinking casually, what else? Just like talking about nothing, focus on just superficial things. That wasn't Elizabeth Holmes' mindset. She was very much so ahead of the curve, and she was just different mentally. So her and Sunny, who is this Pakistani guy, Sunny Balwani, they just connected, right? And him already being 37 years old, right? An older man, and her being an old soul or older mentally, despite her 18-year-old age, she still they understood each other in a level that worked. And look, I'm not trying to say, it's always okay for... I don't know. I just don't think we should be quick with the predatory label, right? The predator label here. Just in this case, because Elizabeth Holmes is just different. It's just a little different. Maybe it's always okay for a 37-year-old to talk to an 18-year-old if they have a mental illness, right? That's the catching, right? But anyway, so Sunny, he's this like Pakistani guy. He happened to be on this trip with her, and he was doing it because it was an opportunity presented to him while he was pursuing his MBA. And, it's also like a nice cost-effective way to visit other areas. And being in China, he probably was like, okay, what can I do to best meet this travel? I could join this abroad group. And that's what he did. So anyway, they connected, and they had a long-standing relationship throughout the years, and he was a part of her company very, very heavily so. What is interesting about him is, I think he fed into the stereotypes of Middle Eastern men, which I'm sure like any Middle Easterners listening, hey, what's up? I'm sure some of you guys may feel like, they probably hate this stereotype, right? It doesn't really paint Middle Eastern men in the best light. And I don't think Middle Eastern is actually politically correct anymore. I think it's like, I don't fucking know, but you know what I mean. Iranian, Iraq, like a lot of them probably don't like the stereotype of being these abusive, aggressive, violent men. I'm sure you don't like that, right? But this nigga right here, Sonny, definitely embodied that stereotype, and he did it well. My God, he did it well. He did it well. But yeah, she was in this relationship with him, and eventually that faded away, and thank the Lord, because it just was very cringy. Anyway, I say all that to say she has a mental illness, and mental illness is too prevalent, and it's making me realize that something else is going on, that this was an orchestrated attempt that has been successful and that will continue to be successful if we're not aware of what we put in our bodies, if we're not aware of what we consume visually and our surroundings. We can be easily influenced, and many of us are so quick to dismiss these types of thoughts and theories, quote unquote, because it goes on the side of, oh, you're being a conspiracist, okay, Alex Jones, okay, right? But you will be the very one manipulated, you will be the very one influenced, and next thing you know, you got fucking schizo because you didn't listen to me. Stop eating organic grapes. Or is it inorganic? But shout out to Hulu. Shout out to, back to back, I've been watching content on this damn platform. Like, at this point, I literally reached out to Hulu like, hey, I have a podcast. Well, want to know if you're interested in sponsoring. You're going to manifest that. We're going to get some ads in here soon. But anyway, so that's one example. This show that I'm watching currently, I've been meaning to get into this show, but I've been delaying it. I've been putting it off. Like, I'll get to it. I finally got to it. I'm not done yet. I think it's only 8 episodes long. I'm on episode 6, I think it is. Whew. It is called The Girl from Plainville. My God, today. Hello? Is the mic on? I mean, sit down for this one if you're not already seated. First of all, it's based in Massachusetts, so I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of tied into it, being from Boston, in case you're new here. But the areas are definitely, like, up north in Massachusetts, like, definitely not in Boston. People be like, oh, I'm from Boston. Like, no, you're from Rhode Island. You're from another state. Stop. Like, I'm from Boston. No, you're from Nantucket. That's not Boston. But people just say Boston because it's just easier, because no one, if I'm talking to someone from Houston, oh, I'm from Nantucket. Oh, where's that? It's in Boston, right? Just say that, because no one really knows the different, like, notable areas. Just say the capital. So anyway, this story is based in Plainville, Massachusetts, and Mattapoisett, however you say it, in Massachusetts. And they're all, I would say, like, they're like in the north side, I believe, in Massachusetts. And they're about an hour away from each other. So these two locations are essential in this story, this real life case. And mind you, I heard of this case years ago when it took place, just, not too long ago. It took place 2014. And I think she was sentenced. Well, I don't know if she was sentenced. I haven't tried to follow up on it, and I won't do it until I finish this series. But I think it wrapped up 2017 with whatever the verdict was. Anyway, it's about this girl who was accused of, so her name is Michelle, and this white girl named Michelle, and she was accused of assisting her quote-unquote boyfriend named Conrad, whose nickname is Coco, of killing himself. And he actually did kill himself. And the reason why they're making this connection is the series of texts that were on his phone by her right before he decided to end his life. And the whole suicide, assisted suicide, right? Is it? Yeah. Basically, when you're in the hospital and you are an ailing patient and there may not be, or seems very, very doom and gloom. Like there's probably no way for you to recover. So an option presented to you is to go ahead and medically end your life, legally end your life. Like that is an agreement upon your situation. And families may decide to go ahead with this service, and the patient may be okay with it and give them the okay. And that's like legal in medical practices. The difference with this one is like it's not a medical practice. This guy, he decided to kill himself in his car, in his truck, and he did it with a gun. Like that wasn't like a medical practice. And the prosecutor decided to go ahead and take this case because the text messages in his phone doesn't paint Michelle in the best of lights. Watch this show because, oh my God. I don't want to go into every detail because, like, I know I talk a lot, right? But I just want to point out a couple of things. Mental illness. It really goes on and support my theory that mental illness is more prevalent than we realize. And another bioweapon is the drugs that we put our children in because, the school sped teacher diagnosed the child to have ADHD. Therefore, the child should be taking these medical, these pills, and these pills that mess up your hormones and your chemical makeup. So I'm thinking that is another example of a bioweapon. All of these teachers who are so quick to label a child with a disorder is now giving the parents grief for not accepting their quote-unquote diagnosis and for not being quick to accept the prescription that they think is best the child should be on. You have 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, even younger, 9 years old, on medication because they're too hyper, or they're too drowsy, or, they can't focus well. Whatever the symptom is, they feel like, hey, it's best to go ahead and put them on medication to treat this. Now, what's interesting about this is that, look, I'm not a sped teacher. I'm not here trying to tell you. No, I am. Look, I am going to tell you, I don't support putting your children on prescription pills. I don't care how difficult your child is. I feel like something else should have been exercised. At the very least, that should be the last resort. Right, look, I grew up with a lot of, let me not say that. Shout out to people who I grew up with. I'm not trying to shade y'all. But, around, here and there, I met a couple of people as I was growing up who were definitely kind of off their rocker. Like, very explosive, very destructive, violent, and sure, maybe if that nigga was on some pills, he could have calmed down a bit. Maybe, That's his kid. I'm going to say his name because whatever. His name was Eric. I remember him growing up, and my God, this nigga was all eggshells, walking on eggshells when talking to him. Like, he would flip out as quick as, anything. Like, he just flipped out so quickly. Anything could set him off. And I was like afraid to like just have a conversation with him. And it was to the point where I'll just like ignore him, or I'll just kind of like walk around him, and like I gotta like say what makes him happy, because I don't want him freaking out. You know, me and him never had anything going on like intimately, but I remember him as far as like friend, you know, in that way. He was friends with another friend of mine who I was close with, so I knew of his personality traits and all of that. So I think about him, for example, and I feel like, sure, you know, or maybe he was on medication and just didn't really, I don't know. But prior to him getting on medication, if he ever was, I think a bigger conversation, a bigger recognition of what was going on was he was coming from or came from an abusive household. I don't think his father was in the picture, or if he was, he didn't have a great relationship with him. And, you know, all of that really plays into the psyche of someone. If you're maybe not someone who's not as strong-minded, and you're easily susceptible to having an aggressive type behavior. Now, what can you do to treat that? That is outside of medication, that is outside of chemical treatment. Go out in nature, right? Hello, don't hang up on me. No, but like, you know, I don't know, like exercise. Go out in nature. Learn to swim, or swim if you already do know how to swim. Find something that you're passionate about, and lean your energy into that. Get it, you know, find something to be excited about. What excites you? And I say all those things because I think all of those things really do help shift your mindset, especially if you're doing consistently, and if you do it out of a genuine curiosity. And many of the people the characters who I've been watching on this show, just like are mentally ill. And when you're mentally ill, you're literally in a battlefield with your mind. Nobody else. It's your mind who you're fighting. You're always fighting your thoughts, your intrusive thoughts. You think the worst, and you're going to operate off of those thoughts, off of those ill, bad, scary thoughts. And when you have these thoughts and you think about it so much, incessantly, it impacts your behavior and it impacts your relationships. So anyway, going back to the show, the girl from Plainville, Michelle, I think she had a mental illness. I'm reading up on it because I did find a Reddit support group for this show. So what I came across is that there's narcissism. There's definitely anorexia, even though her body didn't, I don't know, like she wasn't like scary. You know how like anorexia is like, oh my God, what the fuck? And she didn't think of herself as like too big, or like she didn't say those things. But it is like the official claim that she battled with anorexia and body image issues, all of that. But it's clear that she also struggled with obsessive thoughts and an obsessive behavior. You see that with her relationship with Susie. So this girl named Susie, who she actually had a little thing with, little lesbian situation going on. And there was a moment when Susie's mom is aware that her daughter is gay, but doesn't want to accept it. And whenever she sees her daughter talking and getting close with Michelle, she's uncomfortable with it. She tries to stop it. Like, okay, it's time for you to go home now, Michelle. Like, every time when Michelle will come over and they would hang out at her house, whatever. So Susie's mom was telling her, hey, I don't want you to hang out with Michelle anymore. She's a bad influence, right? She's kind of shifting the blame onto Michelle when it's really because the mom doesn't want to accept that her daughter is gay. So Susie is telling Michelle, like, yeah, my mom is like kind of, she doesn't really approve of you. She feels like, we talk too much and we talk too long, whatever. And Michelle's like, oh, okay. Like, it's hard to receive that, right? And she asks her, but are we still going to hang out right after baseball practice, right after softball practice? Are we still going to do, and then Susie looks at her like, I'll have to ask my mom first, right? Like, and I point this out because Michelle was so fixated on hanging out with Susie because she revolved her mind around Susie, that regardless of what Susie said, her mother said, she still wanted to be with her. She still wanted her time on her. And she still wanted to see, how can we still be together? We got to still be together. Like, it was still an obsession for her. She couldn't let her go. So that's a level of mental illness, right? Like, the obsession is not, child. And I can tell you my story with that because I don't think I'm far from that, to be honest with y'all. If we're going to be honest, let's be honest, because I see a lot of myself here. Is that too transparent? No, like, I think, like, for example, like texting and calling. If I text you and I don't hear back at a reasonable time in my head, right? If I feel like, okay, I text you at 4:50 and it's 6:57, I haven't heard from you. Oh, what the fuck? Like, that, and then my mind goes into just these routes and roads and highways of intrusive thoughts. So, look, I think maybe everyone, put on everyone, maybe not. But I think what helped me with that, because I'm not as bad as I once was. And this has been a couple of weeks. No, but I think I've improved in that area because I just don't like how it makes me feel. Like, I feel out of control. So what helps me is I just detach. Like, I detach. I learned, what's funny? Like, I used to be that way very much so when I was younger. Very much so when I was younger. Because, one, I didn't realize I could control my emotions. Like, what? Like, that's a thing? I just felt like I was always going to be victimized by my emotions. And I definitely didn't think I could be in control of my thoughts. Like, come on. So, me being 13, 14, I was always victimized by my thoughts and my emotions. And I remember, when I would like somebody and I would, like, text them or whatever, I would be so obsessed with if that person responds to my text and how long it takes for them to respond. And I would, like, literally, not literally, but it felt like it was literal. I will hold my breath until I receive a response to my text. And I would be in a bad mood and treating my family members poorly because, oh, so-and-so didn't text me back yet. So I'm mad and I'm going to take it out on you. It was horrible, right? And I was 13, I was 14 doing that. I'm 31, right? And I'm not at that extreme anymore, thank the Lord. But I remember being younger and I realized, like, something about me was to the point where it felt obsessive. Like, it felt like I could only have a good time if this person texts me back, and whoever that person was for that moment in time, right? Whoever I liked in that moment. And if I didn't like that person anymore, then the next person, that focus was on that person, right? Like, it was transferable. And something told me in that moment when I was in my thoughts to just detach. Okay, you like somebody now. Now you gotta know how to like kind of reel it back in, detach. And that was my superpower. Maybe that's the Aquarius in me, because after doing a lot of research, apparently that's a part of the Aquarius personality. We know how to detach. We know how to not be as tied in emotionally, and we do it really just for our own self-protection. So at a young age, even though that was like my extreme time period of obsessive behavior and thoughts, I still learned the art of detachment. And I bring that up now because watching the show, I think about these girls and Michelle, for example, and other girls like her. Detach. Like, I don't know what that really means to anybody as far as like what does that look like for you, but like find something else to focus on. And it's so hard. Like, even right now, I'm thinking about something right now. I'm like, oh, what the fuck did like, why haven't I heard from you yet? Or, I always think about like, okay, I'll wait till I'll get a text from you. I'll be cool. I'll just focus on my day. I'll focus on, what I got going on. But, hello, I'm checking my phone. Anyway, mental illness is real. So I think she has some type of obsession going on. And then this nigga, Coco, okay, that's the name that he goes by, the nickname that he goes by. He is very much so, he knows that he struggles with anxiety, like, and it's extreme, like it's hard. It's hard. And for someone who, like, I struggle with anxiety, but shit, I feel like I can't even say it that much, as the way that he struggled with it. My God. But look, there's a spectrum to everything. So, but he struggled with anxiety, and he actually tried to kill himself a few years prior to when he did it, quote unquote, successfully. And in his anxious thoughts and behavior and depression, he's just a fucking asshole, actually. Like, he's not a great partner to have. And he treated Michelle poorly. There was one scene that I just finished watching of him just making everything about himself. Like, look, I get you have a lot going on mentally and you're fucked up, really, but the world's not all about you. Like, how about you just shift your mind out of your own life real quick and ask me about how I'm doing. Let's talk about things that are not focused on you. And he made everything in their relationship, and I say relationship with quotes because it was just weird. It was just like, teenage, I talk to you every few weeks type of thing, because her phone was taken away at one point because she went to this like retreat or rehab center for people who struggle with body image. But he made everything about himself. There's one scene when he texts her, he says, I need you right now. I'm on my way to you right now. And she was literally on her way to go to probably some party or some type of gathering with some friends of hers, or people at her high school who she wants to be friends with, and they just don't really like her like that. I don't know why. And she's a pretty girl. Like, she's a pretty girl, blonde, slim, pretty smile. But I don't know why the girls just didn't fuck with her like that. It's really sad. And, of course that hurt her. But anyway, so this one time, finally, we see this girl, we see her invited to some type of gathering, and she's on her way to go. The people there is asking her, hey, are you coming? Are you on your way? She's like, oh, I'm about to head out right now. And boom, right at that moment, she gets a text from Coco talking about, I need you. I'm on my way to you right now. Like, first of all, nigga, what? Ask me what I'm doing. Ask me, are you free right now? Ask me if this is a good time. Like, it's not all about you, nigga. What the fuck? Your depressed ass. Nobody wants to be with you right now. You're negative. Fix your spirit. Oh, that really pissed me off because I just think about it. Brought me back to Boston Bay because every time that we spent time together, when we did, it was always on his terms. It was like, I'm free right now, so either you want to be with me right now or we're never gonna be together for the next 2-4 weeks. Like, what? It was never something that was like, oh, let's plan ahead. Are you free this weekend? Let's spend, Saturday together if you're free. He never asked me if I'm free. It was just always, what you doing right now? You want to come over? Or however it was. I can't even remember exactly how our texts would come about to me hanging out with him, because I haven't thought about that detail in such a long time. Wow, I really haven't thought about that in a long time. Look at that growth. But anyway, everything was catered to his schedule. And being the young girl that I was and not as confident as I am now, thank the Lord, but I wasn't there yet. I was so quick to acquiesce to him and just always be available. And even though I was, right? Like I definitely have free time. But it's the principle though. Like, nigga, I'm busy. Why am I always free whenever you want me to be free and I'm here? But whenever I want to see you, it's ghost town. It's bricks. It's cold out. So that's how he was. That's how Coco was to Michelle. And of course, so she went to hang out with him instead and didn't hang out with her friends. And in that hangout moment with him, she's trying to comfort him, and he was just being an asshole, like yelling at her and just making her feel like shit. And I'm just thinking for a moment, like, damn, was this borderline an abusive relationship? Like, I wonder if that's the case there. Anyway, look, mental illness is real, and he was on some meds, so that further proves my point that the medication that he was on impaired him significantly. And I think ultimately that led to his death. I know he said to his mom after his first suicide attempt that he wouldn't do it again. He was going to do it again. Like, niggas say all the time, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm doing fine, I'm better. And they're lying straight through their teeth. And it's not because they want to lie to you. It's because they probably don't want to even have to deal with you trying to fix them or trying to talk through their emotions, because it's so difficult. And he was so resistant to getting professional help. He just felt very hopeless. Like, oh, it's not going to work. I'm wasting my time, yada, yada, yada. And Michelle actually was trying to convince him, like, hey, getting professional help helped me. And what she meant by that was when she went to rehab, or whatever it's called technically, for anorexia, she said it really helped her. Like, she recognized her triggers, and she recognized tools and ways that she could do, or that she could use to better her reaction and her thought patterns, etc. And so she was trying to share that with him and give him some type of hope, but he was, of course, so resistant to it, yada, yada, yada. The accusation is just basically saying that she is responsible for him deciding to end his life. And I think it looks sensational, right? Like, it's just, it makes for a good show. It makes for a good movie. It makes for a good Dateline episode. And it does. Like, it's, oh my gosh, what the fuck? And the way that the media presents it, like, I remember hearing the headlines of it when it took place years ago, like 2017, 2014, around that time. I was definitely like, oh, taken aback. Like, this is crazy. What? But when you watch this series, that nigga was gonna kill himself regardless. Like, whether she encouraged him or not, he was gonna go regardless. Like, we gotta give her some grace, because he was mentally ill. He was mentally ill, and there was nothing there was nothing that could have been done differently. He said in a previous text message exchange with her that he wants to kill himself again, or wants to like do it and be successful. Like, that was a thing that he definitely wish worked out in his favor when he did it the first time. So, like, it's not okay, like, it's not a thing that wasn't in the back of his mind. It was in the front of his mind. Like, he wanted to end his life. He been wanted to end his life because of how poorly he was treating or being treated for his anxiety and depression. And because he was so resistant to getting treatment, it was just like, look, I can't get away from this. So what seems to be the only resolution is suicide. Now, here comes my religious bag, because I want to tell you what the Bible says. Because I think, as much as I think bioweapon is a real thing, I gotta tell you that the devil is real as well. And when we accept that to be the reality that it is, we get to arm ourselves accordingly, and we get to be prepared for whatever attacks that come our way. Now, I'm going to find the verse. The devil there we go. Steals and destroys. Okay. So there's a verse. Oh, I thought I had it. I wanted to read it verbatim, but I can't find it right now. There we go. But basically, these are the words that's in the verse. I just wanted to read the verse verbatim, but I can't find it. No, I don't. That's not it. Oh, is it 1 Peter 5 verse 8? I don't know. Anyway, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how the devil wants to kill, steal, and destroy you. Basically, destroy your worship, all of that. And that is very much true. When you think about these attacks and these what is it? When you think about these thoughts that people who struggle with anxiety, with depression, with anything along those lines, they have these suicide ideations. And with these ideations, they really believe that suicide is the answer. They really believe that the only way to find peace is in death. The only way to find happiness is in death. And that is a lie from the pits of hell. That is a lie from the pits of hell. And I think when you have too large amount of kids, of babies, thinking this and believing this, there's something bigger going on. You know, there's an illness that's happening, that's taking over, and that's killing our children. And if it doesn't get them in their childlike age, it'll get them in their adult age, and it'll affect their relationships, and they'll regret it, right? Or maybe, I don't know. But the point is, I think sometimes we fail to recognize the pattern in things. Like, we fail to fight things accordingly. And it starts with, first of all, how is a child being cared for or lack thereof? And how can we get the child to be properly cared for in the home prior to even the idea of putting that child on medication? And prior to even getting on medication, what are other steps taken to help that child? Because even with the medication, right, it impairs one's mental state. And there's a scene in the show that talks about, like, it blocks your receptors in your brain and it takes away the natural feelings and thoughts that we have as humans, right? Empathy, happiness, pleasure. It blocks those out. And instead, it increases your depression. Instead of increasing your dopamine, right? The good gene and all that, it increases your depression. It actually makes you feel worse. And you become reliant upon these medications. And it's slowly killing our kids, our adults. Like, it's slowly killing us. And I think about, like, at what point do we realize big pharma is out to get us, dog? Like, it's I'm just taken aback. Like, watching this show and other shows that I've been binging on Hulu, I'm just like, oh my gosh. The bioweapon is real. Satan is real. Literally prowling and lying and making us believe that, oh, it's better if you kill yourself. It's better if you just take your own life right now. Don't you hate this? Things are never going to get better. He's doing that to take away any ounce of hope, of faith, of joy. Sure, if you don't bow down and praise God right now, ooh. Whew. Anyway, go check out all those shows. And shout out to another show called The Bear on Hulu. Like, the list goes on. Hulu me out at this point. It's been a great couple of days, but as far as content, watching, and all that consumption goes, I've been entertained and educated and enlightened. All the E's. I really am really impressed. I'm really impressed. Okay, briefly, I want to just talk about the satanic panic. Y'all probably like, what the fuck, Maxine? What are we talking about? We're talking about the satanic panic. Okay. What was I watching? Okay, I was watching another show. A documentary, actually. On Hulu. Based off of... It was an actual documentary, so she was in it as well. But it's based off of this woman named Teal Swan. And her cult-like ways. After watching the documentary and doing my research on her outside of the documentary, I've come to the conclusion that she is in fact a cult leader, and for everyone to be wary and to run away from dogma such as hers. Like, that's the conclusion. Like, I'm just, oh my gosh. I mean, it's giving scam, but I also feel like when it comes to people who are seeking guidance and, I want to be healed, right? I want to feel better. I want to be healed from trauma. They somehow run into these new age way of being and principles and thinking and just a whole new age dogma. It's so problematic. It's so demonic. It really is. It really is. And, I had a whole series last year on Podmas talking about how new age religion and new age spirituality is the destruction of many people. And I really want everyone to be wary of that. You know, it goes as far as to like, as subtle as to crystals and channeling and mantras and just being mindful. Like, we could go into depth about that another time. But watching this documentary, what I want to talk about. So there's something that she does with her followers, basically. And it's basically, so it's called Reimagine Trauma. Oh, that's what I wrote down in my notes. I don't know if that's what it's called. But basically what she does is she takes the wing of people who've been traumatized or claim that they've been traumatized, right? And she tells them about the trauma that they went through, and she gives them like intricate details of the trauma, just to find out that the trauma wasn't real, actually. Like, and I say that because this is one story. I don't know if I want to talk about that. It's just so, it's so disgusting that it just can't be real, right? And it's not to like, I don't want to victim shame. I don't want to like not believe the victim. I don't want to do that. I just think from my research of her, she does this thing where, I think I wrote it down. But okay, there it goes. She plants false memories of sexual abuse on her followers. And by planting these false memories, she does it in a way that is very believable, right? She claims that she has, and she probably does, right? But she does it in a way that's demonic. But she says that she has powers to speak to the other realm and dead relatives and different spirits and entities. And because of this, she gets a lot of people to believe her and follow her and just accept her every word. And so that gives her so much power already. So she tells her followers these false memories of sexual trauma that they went through. And she exacerbates it or completely just makes it all up. So much so that her follower believes her every word. And then that follower is, of course, going to feel angry at the mother or the father who did this sexual abuse upon her or who didn't protect her. And that will then discourage any positive relationship with that family member. And that would then just take her away from that nucleus and force her to be a follower, a dedicated, loyal follower of Teal Swan. Y'all, just watch it. It's a lot. It's heavy. It's a lot. And I after I finished the documentary, it was just 4 episodes, but it was a lot in those 4 episodes. But afterwards, I watched this 3-hour, and I think it was like 25, maybe even 55 minutes, but it was almost 4 hours of a YouTube interview of a podcast called Mormon Stories. And they talked about this documentary, and in this interview, it included a woman who grew up with Teal Swan and basically just denies all the claims that Teal Swan said. Like, this never happened. Like, Teal Swan lied about that. Or like, if it happened during this time, it doesn't add up because I was there most of the time. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. I brought up Satanic Panic because there was a time in the 80s and 90s when a lot of people were following satanic ritual abuse to just like put together these ideas and thoughts and believing that different centers and organizations were among like sexual abuse, trafficking, and yada yada yada. And it talked about how there's this therapist called Barbara Snow who is known for using this method that's actually proven to be dangerous and not something that professionals or anyone should be using. So she uses this method called so she uses this thing called repressed memories. And she says, these repressed memories, she'll try to like unrepress them or something, and basically does the same thing that Till Swan does. Or she's older than Till Swan, so Till Swan got it from her. But she does this thing called she'll plant false memories and say, the only reason why you're experiencing these dark feelings because you was traumatized. And not actual, because she's an actual therapist, but other therapists would say that linking everything to trauma is not a good thing to do, because it's not always that case. Not everyone's been traumatized. Not everyone has a dark story to tell. So you planting that upon someone is doing more danger than it is doing any good. You guys, I'm done. It's been a lot. And honestly, I would have more to say, but there's not a lot in the news right now that I'm really passionate about to talk about. And I was wondering I don't know how this episode's going to be, because all I have in my notes is these Hulu shows. But I'm happy I did it. I'm happy I decided to talk about this, because again, I like talking about topics that are interesting for me, and I hope I deliver it in a way that was interesting to you, so much so that you decided to leave me a strong positive review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and on Google Podcasts. All of that is so greatly appreciated. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will check in with you guys next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.